Isn't this awkward that this is the third episode I'm reviewing from Weeaboo Bills that has Panda's name into the title card? First being Panda's Day from February, Panda's Off from last month's review of this show, and now this month's review of Panda's birthday. Let me just say that I want to celebrate something on my birthday, not to mention that this is the final episode from Weeaboo Bills, and just by watching this episode, especially all the episodes from this show, by binge watching it, this episode is a lot more questionable than entertaining, especially that this is the final time we get to see our favorite bears, well, besides the movie that came out a year after this. Grizz and Ice Bear gives Panda his birthday present of a poster of Monster S, but apparently it's the wrong band. The band that Panda wants to see the most is Monster X. He shows the band itself to his brothers, and they have no idea what Monster X really is, except that Panda does. Then again, this is the type of cliche plot of the tropes that this show does. Panda is interested in some of the stuff that Grizz and Ice Bear aren't. And let me tell you, if this episode is mainly about anime, the episode wouldn't change whatsoever. Because let me tell you that for what Grizz and Ice Bear are just trying to do in order to celebrate Panda and his birthday, they're really a lot more better brothers, even when this show came to an end when it comes to airing episodes. Grizz and Ice Bear decides to make up with the mistake that he did by taking Panda to meet Monster X itself. And there's really nothing else to talk about this episode except that it's yet another episode involving the bears getting into situations while they mostly split up. We see Grizz completely dressed up as an employee, not to mention hiding Ice Bear and Panda in one of the package cases, which leads to Panda nearly falling off a cliff to his death. Yeah, this is actually kind of similar to Panda's friends, but on the other hand, Panda is really having a miserable day since that he mentions that in his previous birthdays, it's just going to be the same thing, except that this time it's going to be a lot more worse. And as for Ice Bear, let's just say that since that Monster X is actually a real band, this is just fan service for the sake of having a fictional character meet a real life band that is part of a cartoon universe. And if you ask me, I can guarantee you that this episode ending off the airings of episodes of Weeaboo Bills is a good way to end off, but at the same time, it shouldn't be a way to wrap up so many plot holes and storylines that we've seen from this show. And like I mentioned about Lucy Num Num, which I'm gonna probably talk about next month if I ever make up my mind, and also the other plots that we've seen in this show. Granted, Cartoon Network had been airing episodes from this show weekly when it comes to Cartoon Bombs, which is similar to Steven Bombs. Back then, well, Steven Universe had 5 episodes to air per week. Not to mention the fact that they don't usually air a lot of episodes weekly sometimes. And just by watching this episode alone, I think it really shows onto why people don't usually talk about Weeaboo Bills a lot, since that the episodes itself are mostly under-advertised. I don't know if it's either the fact that I don't watch Cartoon Network that much, and the fact that I don't see a lot of commercial blocks involving advertising cartoons as of this one, but on the other hand, I think that this episode being the final episode would be mostly upsetting if they actually advertise it as the final episode. Because let me tell you, when I revealed Christmas Parties back at the end of that year in 2019, boy, I really didn't see a lot of cartoons that much because of the equipment I had back then. Monster X, with this being the occasions where a band is part of a cartoon or show that isn't fictional, and the band members who are voicing their characters in this episode, I can say that I'm not a fan of the music. I did watch one music video, but it didn't catch my interest. But by hearing it, I can totally understand onto why Panda is so obsessed with Monster X. And just by looking at them trying to run away from the fans, but also dancing and singing those songs by Icebell, I can really tell you that Panda desperately wants his birthday to be extremely memorable by just meeting the band itself. And let's be real, for anyone who's in this situation that they desperately want to meet their favorite band, but an angry mob of diehard fans just completely gets in the way, it's mostly something that we usually expect whenever we go to a concert in real life. Let me just say that the idea of Monster X just preventing themselves to make any contact with their fans because of how diehard they are is something you usually expect a band will go through in this situation. Just look at Big Time Rush, for example. And the way this episode ends with Panda meeting Monster X for the first time, since that they managed to use the bus as a decoy for fans to run, even though that they think that Monster X was actually in the bus, is a good way to wrap up this episode. Not as good as the movie's ending, but on the other hand, for the amount of episodes that this show has, and with this being the final one, it's still a good way to wrap up the series as a whole. Anyway, I need to discuss on the fact that this is the final episode of this show. Regardless if you're against the idea of this show getting the 5th season unlike I do, you would think otherwise on the fact that some of these characters have less development when it comes to the end of the 4th season. There is a reason onto why I'm going to be reviewing multiple episodes from this show as part of We Bear Bears Month, so I can analyze the characters and the relationships between the other characters. I did it with Panda's crush on Lucy in Panda's Day, despite being a negative review. And I'm going to be discussing on the other characters in this show as part of We Bear Bears Month once I get to it. Granted, though, are so many times where there's so many new characters into the mix that it's just difficult to keep track of everything. And the fact that some of the episodes where we get to see the character for the final time before the show ends, well, with the exception of the movie when it comes to minor cameos, I can still think that there could have been other ways to resolve it. And believe me when I say this, is that this screenshot alone really goes to show that We Bear Bears had a lot of plans with the 5th season, but never came to be. This is a screenshot of planned episodes that the people of this show were planning to make but never came to be. Granted, there are 5, but if we were in the behind the scenes territory, there could have been more. One of the episodes, Cave Chaos, is when the bears find out that both Chloe and Charlie are coming over at the same time, and they do whatever they can to not let them see each other. And believe me, when you completely have this idea of having supporting characters meet other characters for the first time, you really want to see more of that. And we did saw that when it comes to Ranger Tapes and Charlie. And it's a shame, since it's one of the only episodes where we get to see those types of characters meeting each other. And if you ask me, I really want to see a 5th season more than a spin-off of We Bear Bears, of seeing baby bears go around the world in a magic box. Granted, the actresses voicing the characters are mostly expensive, which explains onto why some characters like Lucy barely make so many appearances from this show, but on the other hand, it would have been nice, especially with the amount of ideas that this show can do. And if you're gonna say, well, other shows have the same issue of not doing every single idea, but when it comes to We Bear Bears, even if it's a slice of life show, it could have so many opportunities by doing different types of ideas when it comes to characters meet each other, while also doing more episodes involving wee baby bears. Even though that we got a spin-off instead, but that's besides the point. Overall, even if this episode is a great way to wrap up the episodes of We Bear Bears, I still think it didn't need to end off We Bear Bears. But again, when we get into We Bear Bears month, there's probably going to be multiple ideas of what I can do for that month, and I might be able to consider on just making a separate video regarding to different types of ideas of what We Bear Bears can do if it did have a 5th season. although I'm still debating on the ideal. So, since today is my birthday, I've turned 23, and to celebrate my birthday is to review this episode. So, I really hope that you enjoyed this review, and I can guarantee you that once we head into We Bear Bears month, it'll probably be a month that you will never forget. I give this episode a 7 out of 10.
Let's get this started again.